You've reached the CEO hotline. This is Crystal Jiggerup, business mentor, visibility strategist, community builder, and your new favorite person to have on speed dial. Because you and I both know you are done playing small. This line is for wildly ambitious women founders who are ready to stop winging it and start running their business like a true CEO. We're talking raw, unfiltered strategy, real case studies, and some seriously ceiling-shattering powerhouse CEOs dropping in on the line. So stay on, because this call, it's about to change your business. Don't hang up. Welcome back to another episode of the CEO Hotline. This is the one where we bring another powerhouse CEO on the line so we can dive deeper into the way that they've built their incredible, successful business. Today, I'm so excited for our guest today. It is the incredible Hannah Siddiqui. She is a writer, TEDx speaker, content creator, leading voice in modern women's empowerment. And we're diving into all the things of how she took an idea, allowed herself to be delusional AF, and built a six-figure plus career out of it. You guys are going to love this conversation because she has so many twists and turns and beautiful pivots, and I'm sure like kind of weird and crazy stories. I haven't even known her for that long, but I feel like there's already so many things that I've heard that I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper today. So Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, Crystal, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here and so excited to be chatting with you. We recently connected at an in-person talk that I did with our friends Nicole and Pia over at Malaya Botanicals. And so it's so fun to get to reconnect here. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And this is the power of community. Okay. First, let me say that. Okay. Because everything that we're building with Rolo, all of our women are connected with so many more women and so many more communities, and we really get to lock arms together and continue building beautiful relationships like this. And we're going to dive into it a little bit later, but just to do a little spoiler alert, Hannah is going to be joining us at Summit at A Woman's World September 12th. So if you haven't grabbed your ticket, definitely grab your ticket. But Hannah, coming back to you, I know I cut your bio really, really short, and there's so much more that you can add into it, but I did that for a reason.
Sure.
And
Yes.
I want you to kind of, from your own mouth, give us the breakdown of what this life and career of yours has been like. And you've been building your business for what, 12 plus years now? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, let's see. I turned 28 in April and I started when I was 16. So yeah, that would be 12 years now, which is crazy. I can't believe it's been 12 years.
So what has the quick trajectory and timeline, if you're able to streamline it for a little bit for us, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of give you the TLDR of my career. So when I was younger and up until my high school years, or through my high school years, actually, I was training to be a pre-professional ballerina. I always thought I'd be a professional dancer. I loved ballet, trained from the time I was 2 till I was 17. Then around the time I was 16 years old, I had a sort of big breakthrough moment, or a tower moment, as I like to call it. Ended up having a injury and a change of heart, and just realized that I loved dance, but I wasn't willing to starve for it. And it wasn't something that was going to be my career. And so I pivoted from there, and I'd always been a writer. And in addition to dancing, writing was like the one thing that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be an author. I loved writing. And I had a family member who a couple years before had shown me a girl who was a blogger. Now, this was like 2013, 2014, before blogging was the stratosphere that it has become today. And she was like, Hannah, I think you could do this. Like, you could be really good at this. You should start a blog. And I had enough foresight and self-awareness to realize that nobody would want to read a blog by a 14-year-old at the time. And so I kept it in my back pocket. But when I turned 16, it was like this series of events where I stopped dancing, had the injury. I dropped out of traditional high school and ended up being homeschooled for the rest of my high school years. And I realized that I had this opportunity to really share my voice like I hadn't had before. I was bullied a lot in school. I had a really hard time making friends growing up and just finding people I resonated with. And the idea of posting online felt so empowering to me because it felt like here is the one space that nobody could shut me up. And so I started with a fashion blog, and I would have my mom take photos of me in front of our garage door in the outfit I was wearing every day. I'd post it. I'd write something that I thought was uplifting and motivational. And I came out with the ethos of I can help one person feel better, then I've made it. I just want to make a positive impact through my words and through fashion. And from there, it really quickly spiraled. I mean, within a series of 6 months, and again, this is like 2014, so very different era than we're in today. I went from 0 to 10,000 followers on Instagram and like 20,000 monthly readers on my blog. And from there, I was led to so many different opportunities that I'll just like quickly highlight, where not only was I able to work with some amazing brands very early on in my career, but I also was able to get modeling opportunities, and I did commercials all throughout college. And then from there, that led me into stepping on the other side of the camera, becoming a photographer and videographer. And then I became a touring music photographer, and I toured with rock and roll bands throughout the time that I was in college. And then despite all of that, I ended up going to UC Berkeley, and I graduated with degrees in sociology and English lit. And then during that time, I also decided to get fully certified in meditation, breath work, trauma-informed healing, spiritual psychology, really just of a profound love and interest for these things as well. And by the time I graduated college in the spring of 2020, I had all these tools that I had been harnessing and just studying for years now at this point. And the world was in absolute chaos, and people needed it. And so people started asking me to teach them what I had learned. And I was like, teach? I'm just learning these from the perspective of a student. But from there, my kind of foray into coaching and mentorship started to really organically evolve. And it also helped that I had done quite a few speaking gigs up until this point. I'd done TEDx at this point, and already been like a keynote speaker around the country. So people trusted my voice. And then from there, it just really took off. And so I know that's not super concise, but I hope that's as concise as possible.
I think given the amount of things that you had to fit in there, you did a really incredible job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I know the episode is just starting to get juicy, but before we keep going, I want to tell you about A Woman's World. It's Harolo's annual summit, one full day, high impact, bringing together founders, coaches, creatives, and women who are actively building something meaningful. Every year the event grows, and every year the energy in that room is something I cannot even fully put into words. You have to be there. We're talking curated speakers, hands-on workshops, and the kind of room where you leave with real clarity, real connections, and real momentum. This year's theme is Level Up. Level up your personal brands, your leadership, and your marketing and sales, and everything we have planned for this year is built around that. If you've been waiting for a sign to get in the room, this is it. Grab your seat through the link in the description, and if you want the best deal in the room, join as a Harolo member first, because members get up to 40% off on top of the original early bird pricing, so you're stacking your savings from day one. Links for both are in the description. Okay, back to the episode. And it's really interesting kind of seeing all of these different pivots, but as you were talking, none of that felt like you were lost in any of that. If that makes sense. Like everything still felt like so aligned and so fulfilling and so authentic to you. And I find that so interesting because you were so young. And there's so many of us that are like, oh my God, I'm turning 30 and I have no idea what and things like that. And that, by the way, that voice was not to like talk down on anyone that's feeling that way, because I've had those moments too, trust me. But where do you feel like that kind of like confidence or clarity in your direction and where you're meant to be, like where did that stem from? And also to tie into that, because I was really curious about this, like where did that pivot come in from deciding to work from the trauma informed space? Because it didn't seem like that was a part of your story in the beginning, but there's clearly something that was calling you to that.
Well, it's really interesting. I think the confidence piece came from the fact that I have and had very supportive parents growing up that never really told me I couldn't do something. And I don't mean that in a sense of like recklessness and reckless abandon, where they were like, yeah, go do anything you want. Not necessarily that. It was more so like if I had an idea for something, they were like, okay, do it. Like, we don't know how, but like, go figure it out. And thankfully I grew up in a time where we had the internet and we had early social media. So there were ways to figure out how to do things. And I think there's always been a resourcefulness that's come from me that I think also stems from the fact that I was pushed really hard in school, and education was very important in my upbringing. So I learned how to research. I learned how to be self-sufficient, and then eventually being homeschooled, like you're kind of teaching yourself. So I really thrived in those sort of environments. So when I was thrown into opportunities where maybe I didn't know how to do something, but I knew in my gut I wanted to say yes to it. I trusted not necessarily always in my ability to execute in the moment, or at least execute perfectly, but I always trusted in my ability to figure it out because I knew that I could research. I had no problem reaching out to people and asking for help. I sent so many cold emails and DMs. Like I didn't care and I wasn't afraid to embarrass myself for the sake of learning. And I think that's been one of the most important highlights of my career has been just being able to throw spaghetti at the wall. And like, if it falls down, it falls down. And it is what it is. I've always came from like the belief that I would rather crash and burn and have something turn out terribly than never try and always wonder what if. I am not someone who can sit in uncertainty very well like that. So I'm like, I need to know, and I need to know whether or not that I can do it, if that makes sense.
That last part is so interesting to me because you're saying you are not the type of person that can sit in uncertainty, but that's actually why people don't take the leap. Because of that uncertainty, because this feeling of safety and familiarity to what they're already doing, that even though they're feeling these callings and even though there is that like what if I could, and what if I, I feel these feelings of delusion, but I'm too scared to dive into it. So that was a really interesting shift in perspective than I think that I've heard before, that you were afraid of the uncertainty of not knowing what would happen if you tried it, or if you
if you try it. Right. Well, like if you try it, let's give an example here, right? Like let's say that you are at the gym and you see someone really cute and you're like deliberating whether or not to ask them out, right? There's uncertainty there. They could say yes, they could say no. You have no idea which direction they're going to go in. But if you sit there perseverating and sitting in the uncertainty, you're just prolonging the uncertainty. You're never going to have an answer. If you go up and you ask them out, like, yeah, they might say no, but then you have an answer. And then you're not prolonging like your own suffering in the uncertainty.
I love that. I love that. Diving a little bit deeper into it. And I think what it is that it's not even the uncertainty. It's that people start creating their own answers for themselves. And it's something that I've seen a lot. And I'm constantly telling people, like, my mantra is like, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So I'm very much aligned with you in being a proponent of make it happen. Of create your own opportunities, of just ask the question, of try it, figure it out. We're all forever students. And if you are not accepting that for yourself, you are depriving yourself of so much opportunity, so much fulfillment, so much expansion. And being able to just put ourselves out there and ask the questions and start rewiring what that narrative is in our head of, oh my gosh, if I ask, they're probably going to say no and I'm going to feel like a fool of myself. Right. But then also, they probably don't give two shits. No. We're always thinking that everyone is thinking like the worst of us, or is like constantly talking about us behind our back, or whatever the case may be, when in reality, nobody actually cares. And it could be a no, and that happens. That's literally a part of life, and that's always one step closer to a yes. But then what happens if that's a yes? And it seems like you've had all of these incredible, beautiful yeses, and all this spaghetti that you're throwing is like this glamorous, glittering spaghetti. Like that's what I envision for you.
I love that. I love that. And I also want to be so honest and real that like I can sit here and say that like, yes, absolutely. I've been blessed to have these incredible milestones in my career and to be able to do it at such a young age. And at the same time, I want to be very real with people that like even having that, and like, I think to the outside, people generally, and it's just based on the feedback I've gotten, look at me and they think like, oh my God, she's young. She has it so figured out. And the answer is like, yes, in some ways, and no in others. And I think that it doesn't matter how much success you have early on in life. You are not spared from the trials and tribulations of growing up and being an adult, which means that I think there's always moments where you question yourself. And there's always moments where you look at your life and go, I don't know what I'm doing. And I've had so many of those in my life. And definitely have had the self-doubt and the moments of, is it going to work, or am I going to look stupid? And are people going to talk about me? And then actually the reality of people talking about me behind my back. And I'm also a big believer that like, none of that has the power to define your story unless you give it the power to define your story. So people are going to talk about you. Like on the one hand, people don't care about you as much as you care about yourself. So like people aren't thinking about things as hard as you are. And at the same time, people are going to talk about you whether you do it or don't do it. So you
Yeah.
might as well do it because they're going to be talking regardless. Right?
Have you ever seen that like graph where it's like you start putting yourself out there and then people are like saying like, oh, you're crazy and they're judging you.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
all of a sudden you start becoming a little successful and then they're like still talking about you and they're still judging you,
Hmm.
but then they're like being a little bit quieter and they're watching you. And then all of a sudden you make it to
Yep.
the other side and they're like, oh my God, how did you do it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I witnessed that in real time when my high school bullies were the ones sliding in my DMs.
Stop. Amazing. I love that for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is such a perfect conversation because it ties into
Yeah.
what we're going to be leading into with Summit. And you are going to
Yes.
be moderating the first fireside chat where we're talking about
Yes.
personal branding and leadership, and visibility is tied into all of that. So
Hmm.
clearly, you've been building a career that is very visible.
Yes.
You are very public facing, and
Yes.
even with all of these different pivots and these moments where I would love to, first of all, hear like those moments
Yes.
where everything kind of came crashing down. And I
Yeah.
know you had one of those kind of earlier this year where a lot
Yes.
of things had changed, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into that leadership aspect of how you continue
Yeah.
to be visible, how you continue to create more capacity and navigate those moments
Hmm.
where the self-doubt does come or where you're doing it messy but still very publicly. So let's start
Yeah.
with earlier this year and what that actually meant
Yeah.
when everything kind of I don't know if it failed in your perspective
Yeah.
or things just came crashing down or however you want to word it, but I know you had a few very, very rough months earlier this year. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely, yes. It was probably one of the most difficult times of my life. I'd even go as far as to say that like November of last year to like really May, June of this year was like probably one of the hardest periods of my entire life. And I mean, the idea of failure is so subjective, right? What I deem a failure, what you deem a failure, what anyone else does is completely subjective. But in my eyes, what I experienced was complete and utter like system failure. Like everything completely crashed. I was living in this like beautiful luxury apartment with a pool and a doorman and all 9 yards, all the bells and whistles that I had worked really, really hard to be in. It was like that big city apartment that I thought I always dreamed of, lived there for 2.5 years. And I ended up moving out of that place and had kind of no idea where I was going to go, which led me to living at my grandfather's house in the suburbs for what I thought was going to be like 1 to 2 weeks, ended up being about 4 months. And I want to caveat this by saying that like I'm so grateful to have had family to live with, to have had a really safe place to be in. But it was also at the same time like extremely hard because I went from living in like the pinnacle of what I'd always imagined and envisioned for myself into living with family and feeling like a child again. And that like drastic shift overnight. And it literally was overnight because it got to the point where I didn't know where I was going to go that I called my grandfather and I was like, can I come tonight? And he was like, yep, totally stay as long as you want. Like you're good. So it was so quick that my nervous system wasn't prepped for it. I also walked away from many, many big friendships in my life, like really big friendships over the last year that were so heartbreaking and devastating. And I think the loss of female friendships can be almost harder than like loss of romantic relationships in certain ways. So that was compounded in that. Went through a big personal loss. So there was like a lot of grief that I was dealing with that I'd never felt before. And then there was, my relationship imploded in a lot of ways, just like realizing that there were a lot of patterns and structures that were not serving us that needed to be worked through. And then it was this feeling in my business of feeling absolutely burnt out too. Burnt out and tired of supporting so many people all the time, running myself into the ground. And I think it was just like my body had enough. I needed to just check out kind of from everything. And so it was one of those moments where I realized that hard work and mindset couldn't help me outrun the pain that I was feeling in every area of my life. And so for the first time ever, I feel like I was really forced to sit with it and sit with myself. And what that looked like was I ended up taking a 2.5 month hiatus off of social media. I deleted my Instagram, TikTok off my phone, didn't go on it, didn't look at it, didn't give any warning. And I logged off with the knowing that like my business could completely fall apart by the time that I come back on. And I was okay with that reality because I had gone through so much loss already that I was like, what's one more thing
What's
at
another
this
thing?
point?
Yeah.
What's another thing? But during that time, I was doing a lot of crying, but I was journaling and I was reading in the park and I was meditating and I was really discerning about who was in my circle and who wasn't in my circle and like what was I investing my time and energy into. And I really came back to myself. And it was probably the hardest initiation, like I said, I've ever gone through. And I'm so grateful for it because where I am now, it's funny because I was literally talking to one of my girlfriends about this yesterday. My life now is a complete 180 from how it looked in February, March, April of this year. Like absolutely complete 180. But it's because I allowed myself to really be in the grief and let my old life burn down that I was able to get to a place where everything is like so different and so beautiful now.
I want to take a pause and ask you a really quick question. Are you still building your business in isolation? Listen, you do not have to do that anymore, okay? I built Harolo, our women's entrepreneurial community, because I knew I didn't want to go into business alone, and I'm tired of seeing other women entrepreneurs still building their business alone. This is a community based on real connection, real resource sharing, and a network of women who actually want to see you win. We're not just here for the superficial follows online and the surface level conversations. We have virtual workshops, mastermind calls, a members only platform, and we also host in-person events here in the Bay Area, and we're continuing to expand across the US every month. If you're ready to stop building solo and start surrounding yourself with people who get it, then join us at harolo.com/apply. That's HERROLO.com/apply. That link is also going to be in the show notes. Okay, let's get back into it.
Are you able to share what the catalyst was for all of that? Because it seems like so abrupt. Was there like a specific moment that, okay, everything is all of a sudden just starting to fall apart?
There was, and I don't know if it's something that I'm comfortable talking about publicly,
okay.
but I'll just say that it was a big like personal moment that really knocked me over the head, was very unexpected, and just made me look at everything in my life differently and go, is this what I actually want? Is this sustainable and am I happy? And I think no matter how you interpret that in particular, there's so many different things that cause those sort of like earth-shaking moments in our life, right? It could be, meeting the right person. It could be the death of a family member. It could be, being diagnosed with an illness. It could be moving into motherhood. Like there's so many different iterations of what that looks like that while I don't necessarily feel comfortable going into my specific catalyst for it, I will say that I think the theme is so universal in whatever it is, where you have those moments where you're just really like shocked into life. It's almost like the feeling of like dunking your head in cold water and then it's like, oh my God, everything is different now. You come out and you feel the shock to your system and you go, everything is different. What am I going to do about it? And it was one of those moments that for me, I realized I can't continue on the same way, right? Like for me, up until that point, like I was like, okay, I'm spending an arm and a leg to live in this very fancy apartment, but it never really feels like me. Nothing, the furniture I can't get right. The energy feels wrong in the space. And my friends never want to come over here. Something feels weird. I'm not happy with the neighborhood that I'm in. I don't necessarily love where I'm living. I'm Tuesday through Thursday, I'm on client calls from 8:30 in the morning until 8 p.m. And yeah, I'm making really great money, but like this is a lot for me. Am I actually happy doing this? And so it was so many moments of having to look myself in the mirror and be like, am I happy? And answer honestly. And the answer was no, I wasn't.
So bringing it back to the business perspective of that, and you were already coaching at that time, right? That was your core business. How did you just completely walk away from that? What did that realistically look like for you? And how do you
Yeah.
continue to position yourself as this leader and still take care of yourself in the hardest moments?
Oh, it's really hard. It's really hard. And it's hard not in the sense of like, I think I'm really good at this point of holding my own emotions and being able to hold space for other people. I think that's something that also I've been kind of trained with through childhood, especially being like an eldest daughter. I have three younger siblings. I'm used to being able to like hold myself and like be able to be there for others. But it's hard in the sense that one thing I notice is that my clients and the people that are drawn to working with me oftentimes are going through things that mirror the exact same things that I've either like gone through or are actively going through. So it touches very sensitive points, which I think can be very challenging when you're helping someone work through something that you're working through on your own. What I will say is I haven't completely walked away from coaching in a sense. I do still have like my beloved long-term one-on-one clients that I've been supporting, many of them for the last 4 years, and I love them so much. I will kind of always be with them. But what I've done is instead I've looked at what is it that I've built? What is like the nugget? What do people come here for? And how can I do this in a way that's much more sustainable for me? So for me, that looked like two different things. One, I kind of closed down my one-on-one offerings in the sense of I'm not taking on new one-on-one clients. Very rarely, like if it's someone who maybe worked with me in the past, okay, sure. For the most part, I'm not taking on new one-on-one clients. In addition to that, though, I did build a mastermind. So I have a group setting now that I'm able to work with people in, and that feels so much more aligned. Having one group call a week feels so much better to me than like 5 one-on-one calls a week, and just honoring like what my body and what my nervous system needs. And I also started taking Substack really seriously. Substack is my favorite place on the internet. I love it so much. And taking the themes that I would normally coach on and work my clients through and being able to channel them over there into really raw, deep personal essays that, you know, if people want to go deep and kind of self-coach through them, they can pay a very small amount per month for. I think that also felt very aligned. And then coming back to my roots as a writer as well felt really good. So it was more so not, at least in this situation, it was not about burning the entire structure down, but it was more so realizing that the funnel at which I'd been channeling those energies through wasn't working, and just like redirecting those pipes in other routes.
I love that. Something that I saw on your feed, I was doing a little more research
I love it.
right before we hopped on. And one of the things that you were talking about was this shift from you performing to you really coming back to yourself. And I love that you're going back to Substack, because it really seems like this full circle moment, because you started with your blog, you started with long form writing. And as you were talking about like the apartment that you're in, and that it was all like glitz and glamour and fancy, but it never felt right. You didn't like the neighborhood. And that it had me thinking of like you feeling almost like you're taking on this persona because you've built such an incredible presence in the public eye, that it's so easy to take that as what defines you, right? As this successful business owner, as this content creator, as someone that's living this really incredible life. And I love that you mentioned in whatever post that was, that you didn't want to be the cool girl. Like, and you had that beautiful realization that you are an amazing fairy, and you're going to live your life that way and talk about love and write on Substack and all of that. And I think that's so beautiful. But that visibility piece of building in real time, of allowing people to see you, and of you choosing to step back and then all of a sudden come back and seemingly like risen from the grave, and people to be part of that journey with you. It's not easy. No. And visibility is something that I love talking about, and it's something that I coach my clients through, because there's often so much friction in how much of myself do I show? How do I tie my personal life with everything that I'm doing and with the way that I'm wanting to support people? And considering that when you started your content creator career, not everyone was on social media trying to be content creators. It's a completely different world, as you mentioned. So taking all of that into context now, what would be your best advice for women that are still building their careers, still building their digital presence, and still working through the friction of feeling comfortable being seen?
That's such a good question. And I love that you asked that because I think the idea of being seen, we think that someone who posts online, like I do, like you do, could never have a fear of being seen. But in reality, I think we often have the biggest fears of being seen. And I think the majority of women, I would say, just from my own personal experience and like data collection, the majority of women who put themselves out there in a public way often have the deepest fear of being seen because most people, whether they know it or not, are doing it because they want to feel loved, because they want to feel adored, because they want to feel accepted. And that's not wrong, right? I think we demonize that idea of like, oh, you're doing it because you just want attention, you just want to be loved. But like, love is such a core human need, not even a value. It is necessary. And I made a video about this recently, but I was talking about how like our brains have not evolved from primal times. So primitively, we needed community, we needed other people, because otherwise we wouldn't have access to food, water, tools, anything that we needed. And while society has adapted to where we can operate a little bit more singularly, our brain has not adapted from that primal state. And so we need love and connection as a core human need. I mean, we see what happens when people are deprived of human connection and they experience severe mental and physical health issues. So we are hardwired for love. And sometimes when we aren't experiencing that in our immediate reality, right? Maybe we have trouble with our family. Maybe your story is similar to mine and you have trouble with making friends at school. We seek that out by any means possible. And I can even be honest and say that whether I had the conscious awareness that I was doing this or not, when I look back on that 16-year-old who started, yeah, she started from self-expression, but she also started because she wanted to be loved, because she wanted to be accepted, because she felt ridiculed and bullied and hurt by the people in her reality. And she just wanted to feel like she could find a place where she had people. And I think many of us start that way. And it's not to say that it's wrong, but I think where this leads into the fear is that we also create the subconscious idea of who we think we need to be to receive that love. And what happens is that drives us right into the performance mode, right? Mm-hmm. Where we are performing this role that we think people want us to be, or that rather we've even convinced ourselves that we want, but it's not actually what we want at our core. And I'll speak for myself and say that, like, did I consciously go into getting that apartment, filling my calendar, dressing a certain way, because I consciously was telling myself, like, oh, this is what people want from me? No, it's not. But subconsciously, I 100% was doing it for that because I convinced myself that this like girl boss, hyper independent, super successful, like doesn't show emotion, just is truly like stoic and badass. I convinced myself that that's who I was. And that was also what the world wanted of me. And it was in a sense authentic because it truly was who I was then. But was I operating out of the deepest part of my heart? No. And I think that was what that whole sort of pivot or tower moment at the beginning of this year was that it was about stripping me naked, metaphorically speaking, so that I could connect to my heart and go, who am I really? When I accept the fact that I will be loved regardless because I am love, and wherever I go, I will attract it in, and the same goes for you as well. And when you accept that, it's like, okay, if I didn't need to perform and I knew it was going to be inevitable, how would I be? And some things stayed the same, and a lot of things changed.
That was so beautiful. The way that you articulate things and the way that you share your story, it's like I could just immerse myself in it all day, girl.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you.
And I as you're talking about that, I just see so much of that in the revelations that I've had with my own life, because it was up until I found myself a mom of 2 young children, about to turn 30. And for so long, I was just checking off society's boxes, even though I felt in the deepest part of my own heart that I was meant for so much more, and that I was meant for bigger impact, and that I was meant to be an entrepreneur. Sure. I actually thought I was going to be a fashion designer. So living vicariously through your story with the fashion blog.
I love that.
I really just had this moment of, I think I'm done doing that. And I'm ready to start finally choosing me. But it still took time, even though I had this like really big internal pivotal conversation with myself. of I'm living life my way. I'm going to be authentic to myself. I'm finally saying yes to myself and no to everyone else, or no to the things that don't align with me. So many opportunities did come up, but also
Yeah.
it was still this process of finding that safety in every step of, if I show this part of myself, what is the reception of it? And what is the perception of me? And how does that impact my family? And I think that's so interesting for our fellow moms that are listening. And if you're in relationships and you start the dynamic off where you're not an entrepreneur, where maybe you're both the 9 to 5 mindset and you're single, and then all of a sudden you throw kids to the mix, which changes the dynamic. And then you're all of a sudden an entrepreneur, and that changes the dynamic. And so I learned a lot about myself in terms of communication, how important that is, and the transparency and vulnerability that comes with that. And with building Horolo, as the founder, I'm inherently looked at as the leader, right? And looked at as a mentor. And even though I never built the platform to be that, to be any kind of funnel into me, it was truly a funnel or a platform to highlight other women. But that just inherently happens. And so I had this friction of how much of myself can I actually position as a leader, which is something that I've always felt of myself, right? But then there was that gap. And so it was always just these layers that I would slowly uncover of, it is safe to be me, and people continue to love me as me. And that's actually opening more opportunity and more opportunity and more opportunity. So I love hearing that from your perspective in your story. And now you continue to have this beautiful business, and you've manifested your dream apartment, and you're doing all these things that you love. So I think that's why I was so excited for this conversation, because I am also, there's definitely a part of me that's delusional. I think all entrepreneurs have that side of themselves, but I love structure. I am a triple Virgo. Apparently, I have still not confirmed that. I know people have heard me say that. I need to confirm it, and I will do that one day. But I love structure. I love getting like tactical and really talking about the tangible things. So how do you realistically incorporate this delusion into building a business that actually works?
You know, I love that question so much, because I think that there's this common misconception when I say that I am very delusional about my career, that I am just like out here just living life and just hoping it's all going to work out. Like, I am very type A. I am very structured. I love a routine. I love a bedtime. I love having these systems in place. But having these systems in place is what allows me to then be delusional. And when I say delusional, I mean that I have this unwavering belief that things just work out for me, even if I can't see it, even if I don't know how. I just know I'm going to get what I want, and I know that things are going to work themselves out for me, even if every single person is telling me that I'm crazy. Like, I feel so grateful. So I've been living in this beautiful apartment in San Francisco for the last month and some change at this point. And right now, San Francisco's having the craziest rental market it's ever had. Prices are through the roof. I am living in my dream neighborhood. Like, I get to walk to all of my favorite things. It's a beautiful, sun-filled apartment. It's got like the beautiful mix of like vintage and modern, which I love together. And I'm paying less than I was for my last apartment. And I am also paying like significantly less than the median for my neighborhood. Why is that? Because I had the belief that while people are saying, oh my God, the market's hard, I was like, well, that's not my story. I'm not choosing to believe that. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where I said that people are going to say things. People are going to say so many things, but do you choose that that's your story? Does it mean you don't have moments of doubt? Like, I definitely had moments of doubt. Of even like crying on the phone, being like, I'm never going to find a place. It's so hard. But you come back to the belief. And my story was just like, okay, people can say that it's hard. I'm seeing the TikToks of people, searching through 150 apartments. That's not going to be my story. That's just not going to be it. Nope. And I'm so stubborn when I want something and when I know something that like I don't allow myself to waver for too long from that. So I think it's just really about like create the structure in the sense of understand exactly what you want. And like, I know this is like very like manifestation 101, but for example, this apartment, I wrote down every single thing that I wanted, and I got every single thing that I wanted. And I mean, I wrote down budget, I wrote down neighborhood, I wrote down the type of windows, I wrote down how I wanted the kitchen and bathroom to be, wrote down like the proximity to certain things that I wanted. I got every single thing on that list. So I had structure. I knew what I wanted, but I also had the conviction and the delusion to not settle for less and to choose my own story instead of letting the news or social media or whoever off the street dictate that story for me.
I love all of that so much. And I am so appreciative that you kind of have the same approach to delusion as me, where it has to be mixed with the structure, because that's what's giving you the capacity to be in overflow, to be in this more feminine energy, because you know you have taken control of the foundation to set yourself up for success. That you're not just giving it up to the universe and you're just falling into this victim, whatever happens, happens. But you've still laid down the groundwork to actually make the things happen for you. And being able to write it out, being able to create, like physically create the thing, whether it's, you know, on your computer or whatever, that makes it more tangible, where it's not just living in your mind and it all works together. Oh my gosh. Hannah, I really could talk to you forever, but we don't have forever, unfortunately. But luckily, we are going to be talking more at Summit, A Woman's World 2026, September 12th, Berkeley, California, full day event. Really quick, have you been to a bunch of different conferences before?
I have. I love a conference. I love a women's conference, and I am so excited to be part of Women's World. So thank you so much again for having me, because I cannot wait.
Absolutely. Going into it, what would you say to the women that are attending, especially if they've never attended a conference before, of how they can truly maximize the experience?
Ooh, I would say don't be afraid to go up to people and just start talking to them. Like say hi, network. And if like you are looking to make a certain connection, listen, don't be shy about it. If you're like, I'm trying to meet a audio editor, I'm trying to meet a model for this, be vocal. Like don't go up to people and be like, hey, are you doing this thing? I like want to get you for this opportunity, but like talk to people, and then also bring up, I'm looking for this thing. Do you know someone? Like utilize these opportunities as opportunities, right? You're not just going to this conference just to hear people speak. Like, yes, the speakers, no, not to like put myself up there anyway, but like, yes, the speakers I know are going to be incredible. I've seen the lineup. The lineup is amazing. You've curated it with some of my favorite people. And at the same time, there is so much that you can gain from the actual participants themselves. And you can make so many friends and you'll leave with so many connections. So I think the more willing you are to put yourself out there and be unapologetic about what you're desiring, what type of connections you want to make, and also like allowing yourself to be very clear on your intention and what you hope to gain from it, other than just learning from people. Like go in with a clear intention. What do you want to gain from this experience? I think that will make it the most fruitful and the most fun for you as well.
I was just going to say that everything you just said perfectly ties into what we just said previously of laying down the groundwork to set yourself up for success. Like you get to manifest those things, but you were not able to manifest if you don't know what those things are. And to be able to go into it knowing you want to connect with these people, knowing you want to walk away with this kind of transformation or this kind of clarity in your direction, whatever that is going to really just allow you to walk in so open-minded, absorbing all of the beautiful things from the speakers, from the attendees. It's so much more than just a sit and listen conference. The relationships that you're going to build, the feelings that you're going to feel, because our community is amazing. The energy is amazing. You guys are going to love it. It's so good. It's so good. So Hannah, I'm so excited that you're joining us. I cannot wait for you to share your magic on stage. Thank you again so much for being here. How can our audience connect with you?
Oh my gosh, thank you again so much for having me. I cannot wait to be on stage at the conference. It's going to be so much fun. And this was just such a fun conversation. So thank you. Anyone can connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram, TikTok at The Road to Hannah. That's Hannah, spelled like Hannah, but it's Hannah. I know it's confusing. My TikTok, my Substack is called A Moment of Truth, TRTH. You can find that at theroadtohannah.substack.com. That's where I put out new essays about 3 to 4 times a week there. And I also just opened the doors to my mastermind called Relationship Renaissance. So if you are someone who is wanting to dive more into the relationship side of things, you're in what I call complicated love and you're looking for guidance there, I've created the only mastermind for complicated love specifically. And you can send me a DM about that.
Okay, first of all, love Relationship Renaissance as a name. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
All of those links are going to be in the show notes, of course. So definitely stay connected with Hannah. Meet her in person at Summit along with the other incredible attendees and speakers. And Hannah, I will see you very soon. Everyone that's listening, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, do all the things in all the places. Grab your ticket for Summit, and I will see you all soon as well. Thank you again, Hannah. You're amazing.